Hi, I'm Rick Rheins, the Senior Rabbi at Temple Sinai in Denver, Colorado. This week we begin the fourth book of the Torah, the book of Numbers, named Bamidbar in Hebrew, because the first Torah portion is Bamidbar. What's Bamidbar? It's in the wilderness. In it, God commands Moses and Aaron to call upon representatives from each of the tribes of Israel to have a census, a counting of all of the people. Specifically, it'll be all of the men 20 years old and older who will be serving in the army to help defend the family, to help defend the children of Israel, and ultimately to help secure the land of Israel, the place where our ancestors came from, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Becca, Rachel, and Leah. They're only 2 years after the Exodus, but they're already looking forward to that time. Now, of course, as we will learn eventually, it wasn't just 2 years in the wilderness that they would spend. It would be 40 years in the wilderness that they would spend. But that began a process of realizing that we have to prepare for today as well as for tomorrow. The Torah teaches us that we have to prepare for the defense of our family. Note also that two of the representatives of those tribes will also be outside of the land of Israel. They'll take their land holdings in the diaspora. Manasseh, for instance, was not to take its land in the land of Israel. That represents us, those who live in the United States, that we too have a responsibility for the protection of our people. Now, I could relate this whole idea of a census to the newly released Pew document, the survey of religious people within the United States and the state of the American Jewish community, et cetera. But for that, I'm going to have you tune in to tomorrow's service, the Erev Shabbat service. I'll be talking about that. So I don't want to talk about the Pew service the Pew survey right now. I want to talk about, naturally, that which is on the news, and that is the confrontation that Israel is having with the Palestinians, both with the Palestinian Authority and some of the rioting that is in Israel, and it's horrific. And the loss of life and the damage to lives is just incomprehensible for us. When, at the same time that the Muslim brothers and sisters in Israel were celebrating Ramadan, their great sacred holiday, we were celebrating Yom Yerushalayim, the unification of Jerusalem. We're getting ready for Shavuot, which is beginning Sunday night. This Zman Matan Toratenu, this time in which we celebrate the Torah. It should be a time of great festivity, a great time of celebration and joy for all peoples, Jews, Christians, and Muslims. Unfortunately, it has devolved into violence. And I think that's primarily because it's the voices of anger that have been given the headlines. It's easier for us to have people pay attention to what we have to say. We speak with anger and speak with hatred. Acts of violence and destruction are the ones that are going to be filmed and recorded and taken, the photographs taken and plastered all over the newspapers and on the websites and the social media. What's missing are the voices of peace. And that's what I wanted to make reference to today. Throughout the last couple of days, we've had briefings from Israel. And just this morning, we had a briefing. I'm talking to you now on Thursday. And this is a recorded piece that hopefully you'll be able to watch as well, from the reform and progressive leaders in Israel, including the new minister of Knesset, Gilad Kariv, who is a reform rabbi and Israeli. He's serving now in the Knesset. We had Rick Jacobs of the URJ and many other rabbis and leaders within Israel saying that, you know what the headlines are missing are the voices of peace. At the same time as there are acts of violence, and it's horrific and it's heartbreaking, and we need to identify it and stop it, there are also heartwarming and heartwarming acts of love and of respect that transcend the hatred, and that you're not getting any of that on the news. The reports from Ramat HaNegev and from around Tel Aviv and around Haifa of the areas where Jews and Arabs have their villages or the cities or neighborhoods that are in close proximity to one another. Some of the villages and neighborhoods in Haifa, for instance, are mixed neighborhoods. And we have leaders that are Muslim leaders, who are Christian leaders, who are Jewish, standing together and saying, let us promote the sense of respect and of mutual responsibility to build a land of peace, right? Count our names among those who are listed on the census list of those who are making a positive difference. And they're there, and they are there throughout Israel. Unfortunately, they're not being heard. And so this is the message that I have as we are beginning this book of Numbers and the book of census, of the book of listing of the names. I'm asking you to put your name on those who are promoting peace, those who are saying hatred and anger and violence are those for the extremes. But the vast majority of us look at Muslims and Christians and people of different faiths and backgrounds to say, we're brothers and sisters, we're B'nai Adam, we're all of God, whether it's here in the United States or in Israel or anywhere else in this world. And let us no longer promote acts of violence and anger to help denigrate this world. Let's get that word out as well. When we hear of the heartwarming and inspiring acts of respect and mutual cooperation in Israel, share those links with each other. Give the children a role model that they can look at and emulate and share that is positive. I'm not going to say that everything has to be seen through rose-colored glasses. We have to identify and acknowledge that there's so much wrong that we have to confront, and that wrong is on both sides. But there's also a lot right. And unfortunately, we're not making lists of those as well. So let us share our names with those who are going to stand for the prospect of peace. As we begin this Shabbat of Bamidbar, the wilderness, there's that ideal that we will one day get to a promised land, one day get to a place where the swords will be turned into plowshares and the spears into pruning hooks. V'lo yilmadu od milchama. A nation will no longer learn war anymore. May that happen soon in our day. Amen and Shabbat Shalom.